Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the curved corridors of Nexus Station with confidence she no longer felt. The massive space station orbited the gas giant Terminus Prime, a neutral ground where hundreds of alien species gathered to discuss galactic matters. She had made this walk dozens of times over the past 5 years. Today felt different. The air tasted wrong. The usual hum of diplomatic chatter seemed forced, artificial. Alien delegates who normally greeted her with polite nods now looked away. The insectoid Drell clicked their mandibles nervously as she passed. Even the plant-like Verdani, normally so calm and peaceful, seemed to lean away from her path. Elena reached the Grand Council chamber and felt her stomach tighten. Every seat was filled. In her years of service, she had never seen full attendance. The circular room stretched up like a cathedral, with delegates seated in rising tiers that surrounded a central platform. Holographic displays floated everywhere, translating thousands of languages simultaneously. She took her position on the human delegation platform. Her aide, a young man named David Park, whispered urgently, "Ma'am, I'm picking up encrypted military traffic. Something's happening near our colonies." Before Elena could respond, the chamber lights dimmed. Counselor Thexmera materialized on the central platform. The ancient Quadraxi appeared as a shimmering collection of crystalline structures that constantly shifted and reformed. Its species had ruled this part of the galaxy for over 10,000 years. When it spoke, reality itself seemed to vibrate with its words. "We convene this emergency session to address the human question," Thexmera announced. The translation made its voice sound cold, mechanical. "For 87 years, we welcomed humanity into our community. We shared our knowledge. We opened our territories. We believed humans would integrate peacefully into galactic civilization." Elena felt ice form in her chest. This was not a routine session. Instead, Thexmera continued, humanity has expanded aggressively. Your colonies push into disputed territories. Your military grows stronger each year. Your technology advances at a rate that destabilizes centuries of careful balance. The Council can no longer ignore this threat. Threat. The word echoed through the chamber. Elena activated her microphone. "Counselor, humanity has followed every protocol. We've respected all boundaries set by treaty. Our expansion occurs in unclaimed systems. Silence." The shout came from General Krovax, military commander of the Korvath hegemony. The massive reptilian being rose from his seat, his red scales gleaming under the chamber lights. "Your expansion is a knife pointed at peaceful species. Your weapons research violates the spirit of galactic cooperation. You build warships disguised as cargo vessels. You arm civilian stations with military-grade equipment." Other voices joined in. Species Elena had considered friends now accused humanity of deception, aggression, and warmongering. The attacks came from all sides, coordinated and rehearsed. This was a trial, not a discussion. The verdict had already been decided. Thexmera raised one crystalline appendage. The chamber fell silent. "The Galactic Council has voted. By a margin of 473 to 12, we have passed resolution 8,847. Humanity must immediately surrender all military vessels to Council custody. All defensive installations in human space will be dismantled. Earth and all human colonies will accept Council oversight and protection. You have 24 hours to comply." Elena stood frozen. Protection. They called it protection, but she understood the truth. This was conquest dressed in diplomatic language. They would cage humanity, control it, eventually absorb it. Everything humanity had built in space would be destroyed. They would become pets, curiosities, museum pieces in someone else's empire. And if we refuse? Elena asked quietly. Kravax smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Then the Council will enforce compliance. For your own protection, of course. Elena looked at David. The young man's face had gone pale. His tablet showed incoming messages, dozens of them, all marked urgent. "Ma'am," he whispered, "our colonies. New Carthage, Epsilon Eridani, Tau Ceti, they're under attack. Council fleets just jumped in. They're demanding immediate surrender. The attacks had already begun. While she stood here listening to their lies about compliance and protection, they were already shooting at human civilians. The betrayal was complete. Elena activated her communicator, broadcasting on all human frequencies. This is Ambassador Vasquez. We are under attack. The Council has declared war on humanity. All human vessels and stations implement Protocol Omega. Return to Earth space immediately. We are at war. Alarms blared throughout Nexus Station. Automated systems detected her unauthorized broadcast and tried to shut it down, but human communication protocols were more sophisticated than Council security expected. The message reached every human ship and station in range. Thexmora's crystalline structure glowed angry red. Ambassador, you are under arrest for contempt of this Council and incitement of violence against peacekeeping forces. You will surrender immediately. Armed guards moved toward the human delegation platform. Elena recognized the species Korvath shock troops, the same ones probably shooting at human colonies right now. She raised her hand slowly, making no sudden movements. David and the other aides followed her example. We came here for peace, Elena said, her voice carrying through the chamber even without the microphone. We followed your laws. We respected your customs. And you repay us with lies and violence? You fear us because we're young and strong and we don't bow easily. You're making a terrible mistake. Krovax laughed, a harsh barking sound. Mistake? You're barely a century into space travel. You have a few dozen colonies and a handful of warships. The Council spans thousands of systems and commands millions of vessels. You cannot win this fight, human. Your species will learn its place, one way or another. As the guard secured restraints on her wrists, Elena met the general's eyes. You have no idea what you've just unleashed. Humans don't give up. We don't surrender. And we never forget. Thousands of light years away at Tau Ceti Station, Captain Sarah Okonkwo watched Council warships emerge from faster-than-light travel. The young officer had been running a routine patrol when Protocol Omega came through. Now she stood on the bridge of the small defense frigate Determination, staring at 16 Council battleships that had just appeared around her station. Captain, they're hailing us, her communications officer reported, demanding immediate surrender of all human vessels and stations. They say resistance will be met with overwhelming force. Sarah looked at her crew. 23 people. Her ship carried limited weapons, designed for pirate suppression and asteroid clearing, not military combat. The station behind her held 30,000 civilians, families, children, people who trusted her to keep them safe. Send them our response, Sarah ordered. Her voice was steady, calm. Tell them humans don't surrender. Tell them they've just started a war they cannot win. And tell them that every drop of human blood they spill will be paid back tenfold. The communications officer swallowed hard but transmitted the message. The Council fleet responded with weapons fire. Plasma beams and kinetic projectiles tore through space toward the Determination and Tau Ceti Station. Sarah smiled grimly. They thought this would be easy. They thought humans would panic and fold. They were about to learn how wrong they were. All hands, battle stations, she commanded. Show these bastards what happens when they pick a fight with Earth. Admiral Krovax watched his tactical display with growing confusion. The attack on Tau Ceti Station should have ended in minutes. His fleet of 16 battleships faced a single human frigate and an undefended civilian station. Simple mathematics. Overwhelming force versus inadequate resistance. That had been 3 hours ago. Now 5 of his ships were crippled or destroyed, and the human frigate still fought. Impossible, yet happening right before his eyes? How are they doing this? Krovax demanded, his tail lashing in frustration. Our sensors detected their weapons strength. They should be debris by now. His tactical officer, a younger Korvath named Vex, studied the data streams nervously. Sir, they're not fighting like we expected. The human ship keeps using the station's infrastructure as cover. They're launching the station's mining drones at us. Those drones are modified somehow, carrying explosive charges. And the human ship's weapons, they're adapting, sir. Every time we adjust our shields, they find a new frequency to exploit. Krovax growled low in his throat. Mining drones. Construction equipment. They were being fought off by tools, not weapons. The humiliation burned worse than the losses. The station itself is fighting us too, Vex continued. They vented atmosphere at precise moments, using the gas clouds to hide their movements. They're using industrial lasers meant for cutting asteroids. They've even launched cargo containers filled with scrap metal on ballistic trajectories. Our point defense systems can't distinguish them from missiles, so we waste energy shooting garbage. On the main view screen, Krovax watched another of his ships take damage. A swarm of small drones, maybe 100 of them, each no bigger than a person, overwhelmed the battleship's defensive grid. They weren't military hardware. They were simple robotic miners, now repurposed with explosive charges taped to their fronts. Crude, primitive, and devastatingly effective. All ships, concentrate fire on the human frigate, Krovax ordered. Ignore everything else, kill that ship. But even as his fleet focused its full attention on the determination, the small ship danced through space like a living thing. It dove behind habitat modules, used station support struts as shields, moved in patterns that seemed random but somehow always kept it alive. The human captain fought without honor or dignity, using every trick and cheat available. And it was working. Across the system at New Carthage Colony, Commander Thrain of the Quavraxi advanced through residential corridors with his shock troops. The colony had been built into a massive asteroid, honeycombed with tunnels and pressurized chambers. His soldiers were the best in the galaxy, trained for zero-gravity combat in confined spaces. They were dying anyway. Contact front, someone shouted. Thrain's soldiers opened fire down a corridor, their plasma weapons illuminating the darkness. Return fire came not from military weapons but from handheld mining lasers and improvised chemical explosives. Human civilians. Not soldiers, not marines, but ordinary people, miners, engineers, teachers, farmers. They fought like cornered animals, and they were winning through sheer viciousness. Thrain watched one of his soldiers get pulled into a side corridor by something. The soldier's scream cut off abruptly. When Thrain investigated, he found the soldier dead, killed by what looked like construction equipment. A pneumatic hammer, normally used for breaking rock, had been turned into a weapon. "Sir, they've sealed bulkheads behind us," his second-in-command reported. "We're cut off from the landing zone. And they're venting atmosphere in sections we've already cleared. They're trying to trap us in here without air." Thrain realized with cold horror that the humans weren't trying to win a conventional battle. They were turning their entire colony into a trap, sacrificing their own infrastructure to kill as many council soldiers as possible. Every habitat could be sealed and flooded. Every corridor could become a killing zone. Every piece of equipment could be weaponized. "Fall back," Thrain ordered. "Back to the ships." "We're retreating." His soldiers didn't need to be told twice. They ran through corridors that moments ago had seemed secure, but now felt like death traps waiting to spring. Behind them, they heard human voices shouting, coordinating, hunting them. Light years away on Earth, Admiral Marcus Chun stood in the Strategic Command Center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Holographic displays surrounded him, showing real-time updates from across human space. The picture they painted was grim but not hopeless. "Status of all colonies under attack," Chun ordered. A junior officer read from her tablet. "Tau Ceti is holding. Heavy casualties on both sides, but Captain Okonkwo has neutralized 7 council ships. New Carthage has repelled the ground assault and destroyed 2 of 5 attacking vessels. Epsilon Eridani is under siege but still fighting. They've activated Protocol 17? Protocol 17? Chun closed his eyes briefly. That meant the colonists were rigging their fusion reactors to overload. If they couldn't hold the colony, they'd destroy it rather than let it fall to council forces, taking as many enemy ships with them as possible. "How long until our main fleet can reach them?" Chun asked. 48 hours to Tau Ceti, 72 to New Carthage. 5 days to Epsilon Eridani. Too long. People were dying right now, and he couldn't help them. But those people were buying time, precious time that Earth needed to mobilize fully. What's the status of our industrial mobilization? The officer pulled up new data. Every shipyard in the Sol system is at maximum capacity. Luna, Mars, the asteroid belt, Europa, Titan, all producing at emergency levels. We're converting civilian infrastructure to military production. Current projections show we can field another 50 capital ships within 3 months, 200 within 6 months. Chun nodded slowly. The Council had made one critical mistake. They thought humanity's strength came from its military. They didn't understand that humanity's real weapon was its ability to build, to adapt, to turn anything and everything into tools of war. On Mars, factories that made habitat modules yesterday were making warship hulls today. On Titan, refineries that processed fuel for cargo haulers now produced military-grade propellant. In the asteroid belt, mining operations that extracted ice and minerals now forged armor plating and weapon systems. Every human world, every station, every ship in space received the same message. Earth was at war, and everyone had a role to play. Scientists became weapons designers. Engineers became shipbuilders. Civilians became soldiers. The transformation happened with shocking speed. "Send orders to all commanders," Chun said, his voice carrying the weight of command. "We're done playing defense. I want strike packages assembled for raids on Council supply lines, communication networks, and isolated outposts. Show them that attacking us has consequences. Make them afraid to leave their home systems." His staff began working immediately, coordinating with fleet elements scattered across human space. The Council had attacked expecting quick victory. Instead, they'd awoken something they didn't understand. Back at Tau Ceti, Captain Sarah Okonkwo felt her ship shudder as another hit breached their hull. The determination was dying, sections venting atmosphere, systems failing one by one. But her crew kept fighting. "Engineering reports power at 30%, her XO called out. "Weapons down to emergency batteries only. Hull integrity at 42%. Sarah looked at her tactical display. 8 Council ships remained operational, but they'd stopped advancing. They were holding position, almost cautious now. They'd learned to respect the small human frigate that refused to die. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Council fleet," the communications officer said. They're offering terms. "They'll withdraw if we surrender." Sarah laughed, though it hurt her bruised ribs. "They want to negotiate? After 3 hours of trying to kill us?" She activated her transmitter, broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Captain Sarah Okonkwo of the UHSF Determination. You attacked us without warning. You've killed civilians. And now you want to talk terms? Here are my terms. Run. Run fast and run far. Because more human ships are coming, and they're going to be a lot less friendly than I am." The Council ships held position for another moment, then began accelerating away, retreating to the edge of the system. They'd learned their lesson. Fighting humans wasn't easy. It wasn't quick, and it cost far more than they'd expected. Sarah slumped in her command chair, exhausted, wounded, but alive. Her crew cheered weakly around her. They'd held. Against impossible odds, they'd held. The message would spread through the Council fleet. Humans don't give up. Humans don't surrender. And humans are far more dangerous than anyone expected. Commander James Rodriguez floated in the darkness of space, his suit systems running on minimal power to avoid detection. Around him, 19 other soldiers of the Human Special Operations Group waited in perfect silence. Before them, Nexus Station glowed against the backdrop of Terminus Prime's swirling clouds. They'd been waiting for 6 hours, drifting on a ballistic trajectory that appeared to be random debris. Council sensors had scanned them twice and detected nothing. Good, that meant the stealth modifications worked. "All teams, this is Rodriguez. We're go for insertion in 30 seconds. His voice transmitted through laser link communication, nearly impossible to intercept. "Remember, we're here for the ambassador and her people. Get in, get 'em, get out. No heroics." His team had launched from a modified cargo vessel 3 days ago, after Admiral Chun approved the rescue mission. It was insane, suicidal, a one-way trip into the heart of Council territory. Rodriguez had volunteered immediately. The station grew larger. Rodriguez activated his suit's maneuvering thrusters, making tiny adjustments to his trajectory. His team followed, 20 silent shapes moving through the void. They approached a maintenance airlock on the station's outer hull, one of thousands unlikely to be monitored closely. The lock cycled open without resistance. Human intelligence had provided access codes, stolen by sympathetic aliens or hacked from council networks. Either way, they were inside. Rodriguez moved through maintenance corridors, his weapon ready. The station's interior was a maze of passages designed for dozens of different species. Gravity shifted between sections. Atmosphere changed. Temperature varied. It was disorienting by design, making it difficult for any one species to navigate effectively. Humans adapted. That's what they did best. Team 2, we've reached the detention level, whispered Lieutenant Chun through the com. Heavy security? At least 40 guards. Rodriguez checked his tactical map. Wait for my signal. Team 3, are you in position? Affirmative, came the reply. Charge is set on the power junction. Ready to blow. Rodriguez smiled inside his helmet. All teams execute in 3.2. now. The station shuddered as explosions ripped through 3 different sections simultaneously. Alarms blared. Emergency lighting activated. Gravity flickered and failed in multiple zones. Into the chaos, Rodriguez's teams moved. They hit the detention level like a storm. The guards, confused and disoriented by the explosions, barely had time to react before stun grenades filled the corridors with blinding light and deafening sound. Rodriguez's soldiers moved through the chaos with practiced efficiency, their weapons firing with lethal accuracy. Ambassador Vasquez, this is Commander Rodriguez. Shog, we're here to get you home. Elena looked up from her cell, shocked to see the armored figure cutting through her cell door with a plasma torch. Behind him, the sounds of combat echoed through the detention center. How did you? This is suicide. They'll kill you all. Probably, Rodriguez agreed, pulling her through the open door. But orders are orders, ma'am. Besides, we're not planning on dying today. He handed her a pistol. You remember your basic training? Elena checked the weapon automatically, muscle memory from decades ago. I was in the Navy before I joined the diplomatic corps. Good. Stay close and shoot anything that's not human. They fought their way back through the station, and Elena was stunned by the efficiency of the rescue team. Every movement was coordinated. Every action had purpose. When Council security forces blocked their path, the humans didn't hesitate. They fought with a brutality that shocked her. These weren't the peaceful explorers the Council remembered. These were soldiers trained and equipped for war. They moved like predators, and the council guards fell before them. Rodriguez led them to an auxiliary hangar where a human stealth ship waited, its engines already warming up. Everyone aboard now! He shouted as enemy fire began converging on their position. Elena ran up the ramp with the other freed prisoners. Rodriguez's team covered their retreat, laying down suppressing fire. 2 soldiers fell, shot by council guards. Their teammates grabbed them and dragged them aboard. Refusing to leave anyone behind, the ship lifted off even before the ramp fully closed, accelerating at speeds that should have been impossible for such a small vessel. Council defense batteries opened fire, but the ship's system somehow predicted and avoided the incoming fire. They burst through the station's defensive perimeter and jumped to faster than light travel before the Council could coordinate a proper response. In the ship's small crew compartment, Elena found herself shaking with reaction. They'd done it. They'd penetrated the heart of Council power and rescued her. The message would be clear to everyone watching. Nowhere was safe from human retaliation. Rodriguez removed his helmet, revealing a scarred face and dark eyes that had seen too much combat. Ma'am, Admiral Chun sends his regards. He said to tell you that diplomacy's done. Now we fight. Elena nodded slowly. She'd spent her career building bridges between humanity and the galaxy. Now those bridges were burning, and she understood why. You couldn't negotiate with people who'd already decided to destroy you. Then let's make sure we win, she said, The rescue of Ambassador Vasquez was broadcast across every Council communication channel, courtesy of human cyber warfare specialists who'd infiltrated Council networks. The message was clear and brutal. The Council couldn't even protect their own headquarters. Human reach extended everywhere. Admiral Marcus Chun watched the broadcast with satisfaction from his flagship, the UHS Defiance. The massive warship represented humanity's new approach to conflict. Gone were the multi-purpose civilian-military hybrids. This was a purpose-built weapon of war, designed for one thing only: destroying enemy fleets, and it wasn't alone. Around it, 15 other capital ships held formation, the first wave of Earth's counteroffensive. Behind them, supply ships, troop transports, and support vessels numbering in the hundreds. "Admiral, all ships report ready," his flag captain announced. Chun studied the tactical display. Before them lay a Council supply depot, a massive logistics hub that supported military operations across 3 sectors. Intelligence reported minimal defenses. The Council didn't believe humans could strike this deep into their territory. They were about to learn otherwise. All ships, weapons free? Commence attack. The human fleet accelerated, and Chun watched his weapons officers coordinate the assault with cold precision. This wasn't the desperate defense of the first days of war. This was calculated, methodical destruction. The depot's defenders scrambled to respond, but they were too slow. Human ships deployed weapons the Council had never seen before. Swarms of autonomous drones, each one guided by advanced AI, overwhelmed point defense systems. Kinetic kill vehicles, accelerated to relativistic speeds, punched through shields and armor like they didn't exist. Cyber attacks crippled command systems, leaving enemy ships blind and helpless. The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it ended, the supply depot was a field of debris, and the human fleet was already jumping to their next target. Chun recorded a message for transmission on all Council frequencies. "This is Admiral Marcus Chun of the United Human Space Force. You attacked our colonies. You killed our civilians. You tried to cage us and break us. You failed. This is your first lesson. Humanity doesn't break. We bend, we adapt, and then we strike back. Every ship you lose, every station we destroy, remember that you brought this on yourselves. You wanted war. Now you have it." The message spread through Council space, and with it, fear. The humans weren't supposed to be this strong, this ruthless, this effective. They were supposed to be young and weak, easily controlled or destroyed. Instead, they were a hurricane tearing through established order on the Korvaxi homeworld. Councillor Vexmara watched reports flow in from the front lines. Every update brought worse news. Human attacks increased in frequency and devastation. Council supply lines were being systematically destroyed. Isolated outposts fell silent, overwhelmed by human forces that appeared from nowhere and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Worse, the Council alliance was fracturing. Minor species, seeing the way the war progressed, began questioning whether they wanted to be on the losing side. Some sent secret communications to human representatives, exploring options for separate peace. The Korvath, who'd been so eager for war, now faced human fleets at their border. General Krovax's report spoke of human weapons that adapted to their defenses, human tactics that confused their strategists, human determination that never wavered. Vexmara had lived for thousands of years. It had seen empires rise and fall. It had believed the Council invincible, protected by age and experience. Now, for the first time in its long existence, it felt something new and terrible. Fear. The humans weren't fighting like a cornered prey species. They were fighting like the apex predators they'd always been, the species that had climbed to the top of their homeworld's food chain through intelligence, cooperation, and sheer relentless violence, and the Council had given them a reason to unleash all of that against the galaxy. General Krovax stood before the Council of Hegemony Lords, the ruling body of his species. 6 months ago, he'd been a hero, the architect of the campaign against humanity. Now he faced their anger and disappointment as defeat loomed. "Explain to us," the First Lord demanded, his scales darkened with fury. How a species barely a century into space has brought the Korvath hegemony to the brink of collapse. Kovacs kept his head high, refusing to show the fear churning in his gut. The humans fight unlike any species we've encountered. They don't follow conventional tactics. Every ship, every station, every soldier is a potential weapon. They adapt faster than we can counter. And they never stop, never surrender, never yield ground without making us pay in blood. The numbers supported his words. In 6 months of fighting, the hegemony had lost 40% of its military fleet. Dozens of outposts had fallen to human raids. Their supply lines were in chaos. And every day, human forces grew stronger while Korvath resources dwindled. "We were told they were weak," another lord said quietly. "We were told this would be a quick suppression, a lesson to teach them their place. Instead, you've led us into a war we cannot win." Kovacs wanted to argue, but the truth sat heavy on his chest. They couldn't win. The humans had shown the galaxy something terrifying. They were willing to sacrifice anything for victory. They'd destroyed their own colonies rather than let them fall intact to council forces. They'd turned civilian populations into resistance fighters. They'd weaponized everything, from mining equipment to children's toys. "I recommend we sue for peace," Kovacs said, each word tasting like poison. "Separately, without waiting for the council to act. Every day we continue costs us more ships and lives." The lords discussed in heated whispers. Finally, the First Lord spoke. "Contact the humans. Offer terms. We will withdraw from this conflict and accept whatever conditions they demand. The hegemony's survival is more important than pride." Kovacs bowed deeply, relief mixing with shame. They were abandoning the council, leaving their allies to face human wrath alone. But the Korvath would survive. That was all that mattered. The peace negotiations took 3 days. The humans were surprisingly harsh. They demanded reparations in raw materials and technology. They required the hegemony to demilitarize the border regions. They insisted on a public apology broadcast on all council channels. And they demanded the extradition of every Korvath officer who'd committed atrocities against human civilians. Kovacs accepted every term. He had no choice. The alternative was extinction. When the Korvath withdrawal was announced, shockwaves rippled through council space. The hegemony had been the council's military backbone, providing the bulk of ground forces and strategic planning. Without them, the council's ability to wage offensive war collapsed. Other species began following the Korvath example. The Zrel Collective sued for peace. The Verdani Consortium declared neutrality. The Talox Federation withdrew its fleets to defensive positions around their homeworld. The Council Alliance, once a unified force, shattered into dozens of self-interested parties all trying to survive. But Councillor Thexmora, ancient and proud, refused to accept defeat. It had ruled its portion of the galaxy for millennia. No upstart species would dictate terms to the Quavraxi. If the other races were too weak to finish what they'd started, the Quavraxi would fight alone. It authorized the unthinkable. Weapons banned by Galactic Convention, tools so terrible that even the Council had agreed never to use them. Biological agents, designed to target specific genetic markers. The attack hit Demeter, humanity's breadbasket colony, without warning. Orbital platforms released engineered viruses into the atmosphere, viruses designed specifically to attack human biology. The colonists had no defense, no warning, no chance. 400,000 people died in 3 days. Men, women, children, all killed by invisible attackers that turned their own bodies against them. The colony's automated systems continued broadcasting desperate pleas for help long after everyone was dead. When news reached Earth, silence fell over strategic command. Admiral Chun stood frozen, watching video feeds from Demeter's final hours. He saw children choking, unable to breathe. He saw parents cradling dead babies. He saw an entire world die. Ambassador Vasquez, now serving as Chin's senior diplomatic advisor, felt tears streaming down her face. "They've gone too far," she whispered. "This isn't war anymore. This is genocide." Chun's hands clenched into fists. His voice, when he spoke, was colder than the void between stars. "Get me the president, and prep the first fleet for immediate deployment. Target, the Quavraxi homeworld." "Sir," his flag captain said carefully, "that's the heart of their territory. It's defended by everything they have left." "It'll be a bloodbath." "Yes," Chun agreed. "It will, but they need to learn that some lines cannot be crossed. They killed our children with biological weapons. We're going to show them what that costs." The president's authorization came within an hour. The United Human Government, normally slow and bureaucratic, moved with single-minded purpose. The Quavraxi had committed an unforgivable act. The response would be proportional and terrible. The First Fleet, humanity's most powerful naval formation, jumped into Quavraxi space with 60 capital ships and 300 support vessels. They came in hard and fast, and the defenders scrambled to meet them. The battle for Quavraxi Prime was the largest naval engagement in galactic history. Thousands of ships clashed in orbital space around the ancient homeworld. Quavraxi defenders, fighting to protect their home, showed the tactical brilliance that had kept them dominant for millennia. It wasn't enough. Human forces pushed through defenses that should have been impenetrable. They coordinated attacks across hundreds of individual ships with a precision that seemed almost telepathic. Their weapons adapted to every countermeasure. Their tactics evolved in real time. Chun watched from the Defiance's bridge as his fleet systematically dismantled Quavraxi defenses. He took no pleasure in it, but he didn't hesitate either. The people of Demeter deserve justice. Every human who died in this war deserved to see their killers punished. "All ships, focus fire on orbital installations," Chun ordered. "Weapons platforms, shipyards, defensive batteries, command centers. Everything military goes. Leave civilian structures alone." The distinction was important. Humans weren't monsters. They wouldn't glass the planet or kill civilians unnecessarily. But they would strip the Quavraxi of every tool of war, leave them helpless and exposed. It took 2 days of continuous fighting. When it ended, Quavraxi Prime's orbital space was clear of military assets. Thousands of years of accumulated defenses destroyed in 48 hours. The planet itself remained intact, but it was defenseless. At humanity's mercy, Counselor Thexmora, watching from the surface, finally understood the magnitude of their mistake. The humans weren't just strong. They were implacable. Push them, and they pushed back harder. Killed their civilians, and they brought total war to your doorstep. Across the galaxy, other species watched the fall of Quavraxi Prime with horror and awe. The ancient empire, the foundation of council power, had been humbled. Humanity had proven they could strike anywhere, defeat anyone, overcome any defense. Captain Sarah Okonkwo, now promoted to Commodore after her defense of Tau Ceti, led the assault on Nexus Station. The symbolic heart of the council had been fortified heavily after the rescue of Ambassador Vasquez. Thexmora believed it could withstand any attack. Sarah proved otherwise. She used the same tactics that had kept her alive in the war's first hours, adapted and refined. Her ships used the station's own size against it, exploiting blind spots and structural weaknesses. They deployed drones and autonomous weapons that swarmed through the station's defenses. The battle was brutal and close quarters. Human Marines boarded the station and fought through its corridors against Council defenders. Unlike 6 months ago, these were trained soldiers with military equipment. Not desperate civilians with improvised weapons, they were also angry. Every Marine knew about Demeter. Every soldier had lost someone in the past months. They fought with fury that overwhelmed their enemies. When the Council defenders finally surrendered, Sarah stood in the Grand Chamber where this had all started. The place where the Council had demanded humanity's submission. Now it flew human colors. She activated the station's communication systems, broadcasting to every Council world. "This is Commodore Sarah Okonkwo of the United Human Space Force. Nexus Station is under human control. The Council's authority is finished. Any species that wishes to negotiate peace, contact our diplomatic corps. Any species that wishes to continue fighting, remember what happened to those who thought they could defeat us." The message was clear. Humanity had won the war. Now came the difficult question, what kind of peace would they build from the ruins? Ambassador Vasquez stood beside Admiral Chun as reports came in from across council space. Requests for peace talks flooded their communication channels. The galaxy was ready to negotiate. What now? Chun asked. We've proven we can destroy them. Do we become the new council? Rule the galaxy through force? Vasquez shook her head. No, if we do that, we become what we fought against. We need something better. Something fair. Something that ensures this never happens again. The war ended not with a final battle, but with silence. One by one, council species stopped fighting. Their fleets withdrew to home systems. Their soldiers surrendered or retreated. The Grand Alliance that had attacked humanity dissolved into frightened individual species trying to survive. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood once again in the grand chamber of Nexus Station. But everything had changed. Instead of facing hostile council members demanding her surrender, she now sat at the center of negotiations that would reshape galactic civilization. Representatives from 47 species filled the chamber, some voluntarily, others because they had no choice. The Korvath came first, General Krovax humbled but practical. The Jrel and Verdani followed, their leaders apologetic. Even the Quavraxi sent representatives, though Counselor Thexmora remained in custody awaiting trial for crimes against humanity. We gather here, Elena began, her voice carrying through translation systems, to build something new. The old council claimed to represent galactic civilization, but it was corrupt, self-serving, and ultimately tyrannical. Humanity will not replace one dictatorship with another. Instead, we propose the Terran Accord. She activated a holographic display showing the framework her team had spent weeks developing. Equal representation for all species, regardless of age or power. Transparent governance with public records. Mutual defense pacts but no offensive wars without unanimous consent. Free trade and movement between signatory species. And enforcement mechanisms with real authority. A Jrel delegate clicked nervously. And if we refuse? Will you destroy us as you destroyed the Forvaxi military? Elena met the delegate's eyes without flinching. The choice is yours? Join willingly and be partners in building this new order. Refuse and exist outside our protection. But understand this, we will not tolerate aggression against any Accord member. Attack one, and you attack humanity. And you've all seen what that means. The threat hung in the air, polite but unmistakable. Humanity's fleets orbited strategic locations throughout what had been council space. Earth's industrial capacity continued churning out warships at a rate that terrified the older species. The message was clear. Humanity could enforce whatever peace they chose, but Elena offered more than threats. She showed projections of trade benefits, technological exchange, mutual security. The Accord wasn't designed to exploit member species, but to create genuine cooperation. It was, in many ways, what the Council should have been from the beginning. The Korvath signed first, pragmatic as always. Others followed quickly. Within 3 days, 38 species had committed to the Terran Accord. The remaining 9 requested time to consult their governments. Elena allowed it. Humanity could afford patience now. The war was won. Admiral Marcus Chun oversaw the trial of Counselor Thexmora personally. The ancient Quavraxi stood in a specially constructed chamber, its crystalline form dim with what might have been resignation or defeat. Around it, representatives from dozens of species watched the proceedings. You stand accused of genocide, Chun stated formally. The biological weapons attack on Demeter killed 400,000 human civilians. Men, women, and children who posed no military threat. How do you answer these charges? Thexmara's translated voice resonated through the chamber. I authorized the attack. I accept responsibility. I did what I believed necessary to stop your species before you dominated the galaxy. And now? Chun asked. Do you regret your actions? The Quavraxi was silent for a long moment. I regret that it failed. I regret the deaths, both human and those of my own people who died fighting you. But I do not regret trying to protect the established order. Your species is dangerous, Admiral. Young, aggressive, unpredictable. Perhaps I was wrong in my methods, but I was not wrong to fear you. Chun nodded slowly. The honesty was refreshing, if brutal. The tribunal finds you guilty of war crimes. The sentence is death, as per the laws of war you yourself helped write millennia ago. Vexmara seemed to accept this with calm dignity. But Elena, watching from the gallery, stood suddenly. I request clemency? The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Chun turned to her, confused. Ambassador? Elena walked down to the chamber floor. Counselor Vexmara committed terrible crimes, but executing them serves no purpose except revenge. Instead, I propose a different sentence. Life imprisonment here on Nexus Station, required to witness and participate in the rebuilding they tried to prevent. Let them see that humanity can build, not just destroy. Let them watch as we prove their fears wrong. Chun studied her for a long moment, then looked at the Quavaxi. Do you accept this alternative sentence? Vexmara's crystalline structure flickered with colors Chun couldn't interpret. I accept. Though I suspect watching you succeed will be a far harsher punishment than a quick death. The sentence was passed. Counselor Vexmara would live, a reminder of the old order and a witness to the new one emerging from its ruins. 6 months later, Captain Sarah Okonkwo, now Admiral Okonkwo, stood in a shipyard orbiting Mars. Around her, construction extended as far as she could see. Dozens of ships in various stages of completion, from skeletal frames to nearly finished vessels, but these weren't warships. Well, not exclusively. These were the ships of the Terran Accord Defense Fleet, designed for protection rather than conquest. Each one carried representatives from multiple species, trained to work together to defend the Accord's members collectively. Admiral, her aide said, approaching with a tablet. The first graduating class of the Joint Military Academy is ready for inspection. 17 species represented. 300 officers. Sarah smiled. The Joint Military Academy had been her idea, a way to build trust between former enemies. Officers from across the Accord trained together, learned from each other, built relationships that would prevent future wars. She walked through the ranks of graduates, seeing humans alongside Korvath, Shrel beside Verdani, even a few young Quavraxi who'd chosen to embrace the new order. They wore uniforms that combined elements from all their cultures, symbols of unity forged from diversity. You are the first, Sarah told them, her voice carrying across the formation. The first generation trained not to conquer but to protect, not to dominate but to preserve peace. You come from species that were at war only months ago. Now you stand together? Remember this moment. Remember that we're stronger together than we ever were apart. The graduates saluted, a gesture borrowed from human military tradition but adapted to accommodate different body types and cultural norms. It was imperfect, sometimes awkward, but it was theirs, on Earth. In the rebuilt diplomatic center in Geneva, Ambassador Vasquez received a visitor. A young Korvath officer, scales marked with scars from the war. He approached nervously. Ambassador, I am Lieutenant Vrex. I fought at New Carthage. I killed humans there. Civilians who were only defending their homes. I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. It means nothing, I know, but I needed to say it. Elena studied the young soldier. She could have him arrested. The war crimes tribunals were still processing cases, but she saw genuine remorse in his posture, heard it in his voice. Thank you for your honesty, Lieutenant. The war hurt everyone. The question now is whether we can build something better from that pain. She paused. Are you enrolled in the Joint Academy? Yes, ma'am. I graduate next month. Then use what you learned in that terrible time to make sure it never happens again. That's how you make amends. Not through words, but through action? Vrex bowed deeply, relief evident in his body language. I will, Ambassador. I swear it. After he left, Elena stood by the window looking out at Earth's cityscape. Alien ships moved through the sky alongside human craft, no longer invasive but invited. On the streets below, she could see humans and aliens walking together, Still cautious, but no longer hostile, the rebuilding continued. Demeter was being repopulated, its atmosphere cleansed of the biological weapons. New Carthage and the other colonies destroyed in the war were being reconstructed. The Quevraxi homeworld's orbital infrastructure was being rebuilt, not as weapons but as trade stations and shipyards. And throughout it all, the Terran Accord held firm. Not perfect, never perfect, but functional. A framework for cooperation backed by the clear understanding that humanity would not allow a return to the old ways. 10 years later, Admiral Chin stood on a reviewing platform watching the Accord fleet on maneuvers. 200 ships from 30 species moving in perfect coordination. It was the largest peacetime fleet in galactic history, and its sole purpose was mutual defense. Beside him, Counselor Thexmar observed in silence. The ancient Quavraxi had been released from confinement after 5 years of good behavior, allowed to live freely on Nexus Station as an advisor and historian. Its perspective proved valuable in understanding the mistakes that led to war. "You proved me wrong," Thexmara said quietly. "I feared your species would become tyrants. Instead, you built something better than what we had before." Chun shook his head. "Don't give us too much credit. We built it because we had to. Because the alternative was becoming what we hated. And because we remembered what it felt like to be attacked without cause." Paparfaxavavarsi mused. "Or perhaps your species simply understands something we forgot over millennia of dominance.